Hello everyone, I'm Derek Elliott from Derek.com. That's not me, that's my guest today, and I'm very excited to announce this podcast that I'm starting for my YouTube channel. And who better to start it off with the guest, the almighty Derek Elliott himself. And if you do not know Derek, you might be living under a rock, but that's okay. Derek is a very talented and experienced 3D Blender artist who specializes in product animation. And that's totally the reason why I am trying to rock this mustache, because our guest today is rocking a mustache, and that's totally not why you clicked on this YouTube link. Derek will be sharing very, very insightful information for anyone who's looking to get into 3D or who's already in. Of course, that's much better. So yeah, you're going to have a great time. So, and I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. So how are you, man?
Good. So tell me about this podcast. Did you have you
Have I ever done
have
this?
you been say that again?
Are you asking have I ever done this?
Well, sort of, or just
Yeah.
I know you had mentioned your YouTube channel, and I didn't have time to do much research yet, but I see your video now, by the way.
Of course. Yeah. So I just started posting for the last like 5 months, 4 5 months. I was posting about like mostly tutorials, and I believe I just wanted to start a podcast, and I just reached out to you, and it was a shot in the dark, and I was very surprised that that you agreed to do this. So thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I feel like I want to do some type of a podcast or something eventually, but until I stop being lazy and actually do it, then it's easier just to join other people and let them share the videos and stuff. But maybe in a few months' time, I can have you on my podcast if I ever start it.
Oh, I would love to. That would be crazy. So it's first of all, I'll just acknowledge this. So it's a bit awkward for me because I used to watch your content to learn Blender, and now I have you as my first guest. So it's a pretty big deal. We're setting the benchmark quite high for anyone who comes after.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to be here, and please do not. Yeah, we'll keep it casual.
All right, I'll try my best. All right. So before we get started, could you just tell a bit about yourself, like where are you living currently? Where did you study, etc., etc.?
Yeah. So my name is Derek Elliott. Obviously you know, and perhaps you're watching, but I do 3D animation, pretty much all in Blender, and I do mostly like product animation and stuff. And the reason I do that is that my background is in industrial design. So I studied industrial design at Appalachian State University, North Carolina, in the U.S. And yeah, so I had been using 3D software since high school, and so the first software I ever used 3D software was CAD software like SolidWorks, and I just got super into 3D. I thought it was mind blowing, just that you could, move objects around on screen, and so I continued kind of playing around with Blender from high school until college. And then in college, with my industrial design projects, I was able to utilize the 3D skills there. And then a few years kind of after college, after working with some more regular like industrial design type engineering jobs, I decided that 3D was really what I was more passionate about. Not so much the designing of products, which I still enjoy that, but I kind of found out that I was really more interested in the 3D itself. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today. And so, yeah, now it's been, I don't know, four years or so since I've been doing freelance 3D animation. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. That's how we got here.
Perfect. So I often feel that can we both agree that this domain that we're in, it's a bit unconventional, and how was the how was the influences when you were growing up? Was it always 3D that you always wanted to get into design, or was it something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think like many people, it was sort of an interest in art from the beginning, and I always enjoyed art class in grade school, and just making art stuff. I kind of got into Photoshop and things like that. A lot of it inspired by video games and things like that. But then also being, somewhat interested more in like analytical stuff like math. And, I never really like loved math, but I like science and sort of problem solving. And yeah, industrial design ended up being a really good combination where there's sort of an artistic side to it, but it's also very analytical and you're trying to solve problems. And I find that 3D is very similar where, at the end of the day, what you're producing, a lot of people would call it art, but to get there takes a lot of technical ability. So that's kind of, I think, why I've enjoyed it so much, is that it's a really nice balance of, the technical side, but also there's tons of opportunity for creativity as well.
Right. All right. So yeah, you have mentioned that you had some industrial design experience beforehand when you entered into product animation. And I checked your LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn says the 3D furniture guy. Now, I believe
Yeah.
most of your audience knows you for your product animation. So how did that transition happen from industrial design to product animation?
Yeah, so we can back up a little bit to when I was in college. So my school actually had two tracks for industrial design. So you could either focus in furniture design or product design, like physical product design, which I know all the UI UX people kind of stole the product design title from industrial designers. But so I was actually a product design major, but my last 2 years, some of the projects I did were much more furniture focused, and I got really excited about furniture more than I thought I would. That seemed like a really cool industry because furniture is an even better example, I think, of sort of that combination of art and design, where designing something like a chair has very strict requirements of the dimensions of it and things like that, because a person has to sit in it. But beyond that, it's very sculptural. And so, that kind of way of thinking got me really into furniture design. So my first job out of college was doing sort of design engineering at a company called Bernhardt Design. And they've worked with some cool designers, but the job I had was relatively non-glamorous. I was mostly doing engineering for like conference tables. So there'd be like a big bank or something, and they need a 40-foot long conference table made out of marble, and it had all this electrical power and stuff. So I would kind of figure out how we were gonna make that. It wasn't that exciting, but then from that job, so I left that job and got a part-time job doing 3D renders for a smaller furniture company, where we would basically take people's custom specifications with custom finishes and fabrics, and I would basically render the product with all their specifications, and that helped our salespeople close a lot of deals because they were able to show like a really nice image of what it was going to look like. And so kind of having that progression from college to the first job to the second job, all being sort of in the furniture area, it turned out that a lot of my sort of early contacts and, when I did decide to go to freelance, a lot of the people I knew were more so on the furniture side of things. And I just understood that industry. So yeah, it was actually once I eventually got like a business coach, and he's really big on, having like a very specific like positioning statement. His name is Jonathan Stark, so he calls it a laser focused positioning statement. And I had mentioned to him that I thought like, oh, I could be the 3D furniture guy, just so that I had like a focus. And he really latched onto that and thought that was great. So yeah, I actually haven't done that many 3D furniture projects recently. And really most of the work I do is not furniture products, but I've still decided to kind of hold on to that title for a little while, just because it's, I'm not ready to be the 3D guy yet, but for now I'll stick with the 3D furniture guy.
Now, I have so many questions to that. Like, I'm just trying to decide which one I have to go with. Now, at last, you mentioned that you had a business coach, and did I understand it right that his basic advice to you was to pick a niche, like to stick with the niche, right? So
Yeah. Yes. Go
right.
ahead.
So like that's something that I personally struggle with. Like I have finally just subcategorized myself to product, but it's often difficult to like let go of all the crazy things that's happening out there and just, oh, I'm just gonna do product. Does that ever happen with you?
Yeah, I mean, and especially when you're starting off freelancing, you kind of take whatever can come your way. You know, you can't, you know, if you can't pay your bills and, you know, you don't have any food on your plate, then you're not going to be like, oh, I only do product animation. You know, you're going to take whatever you can get. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's good to pick a niche because, you know, then you have a special, you know, you have a specialty. So if someone comes to you, you know, you may think that you would get less clients the more specific you are, but it can actually work the other way where, you know, once you become known for some particular thing, then people are going to approach you for that specific thing. You know, if they're looking at two 3D artists, one, you know, does characters, does animation, does fantasy renderings, does product animation, does interior visualization, and someone else, you know, only does interior visualization, then they're gonna be more likely to go with someone who has the specialty. So that can help you win jobs if you have that focus, and then it also eventually allows you to charge more when you become sort of, you know, known for a particular thing versus someone who's, you know, doing all sorts of different things. But when you start off, I mean, it's good to sort of work towards that specialty, but it's definitely something that takes time and, you know, to sort of build up that reputation of, you know, having some type of a specialty.
Perfect. So, what would you recommend? Would you recommend being a generalist or being niche oriented when it comes to just freelancing?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what you want to do. You know, if you're going to be freelancing, then you need to be. It's probably best to start off as a generalist, or at least have an understanding of all the different parts of the process, because yeah, if you're only going to be working by yourself, then, you know, there may be times where you do need to do a little modeling, you need to do materials, and lighting, and, you know, there's a lot of pieces. So I guess there's two specialty kind of areas. So there's like specialty in what you're doing, but also a specialty of like your part in the process. So, you know, maybe you have a friend that's really good at modeling and you're really good at lighting and animation. So then you can kind of be specialized in what you do there. But for the most part, as far as 3D skills go, I think it's best for everyone to start off, you know, as more of a generalist, so you get a feel for all the different parts of the process, see what you enjoy, see what you don't, and then, you know, as you move on, then you can start to narrow your focus a little bit more on what you actually want to work on.
Right. All right. This is a little off question, but did anyone ever mention to you that you have a sexy voice when you give voiceovers?
Yes, I have heard that over the time. I think I owe it all to the microphone, the Blue Yeti. I mean,
Okay.
my voice is my voice, but it seems like the Blue Yeti always works well. I usually, when I'm recording my tutorials, I'll edit the audio afterwards in Audacity and kind of like, you know, adjust the bass and stuff. But as you can hear now, it's unedited, and I guess it still sounds mostly the same.
Don't worry, I'll add the bass. I'll edit this out.
But you don't have to, apparently. It's still
Yeah,
sexy.
yeah, it sounds great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I forgot to introduce myself. But like I'm a student of animation and game design, and I've been freelancing for the last 2 years in product. And my question is that when I was preparing for universities for design, one thing I noticed they had in common is that they basically judge you for your drawing skills. A lot of the test is built on that. So how important do you think drawing is when it comes to doing what we do?
I mean, you kind of have to look at drawing as just another tool in the toolbox. Like, I, you know, in my industrial design education, you know, we did a lot of drawing, but it's really just a tool to communicate an idea. And I think that, drawing still is a very fast, very easy way to get, something visual across. So I think it's important to be comfortable drawing, be able to, quickly communicate an idea. But eventually, especially once you start freelancing, that becomes less and less, something that you need to like present to someone, and it can be more so for your just own understanding. Like I still have a sketchbook always like right next to me, and it's filled with all sorts of little sketches and stuff. But most of those are things that don't ever come into contact with a client. So, I had an old professor that hated how scrappy and tiny my drawings were. Other students would just have one big sheet with like, two nice product concepts, and I would just have like this sheet of like little doodles and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I was thinking about doing this, thinking about doing this. So it's a tool for communication, and if it's for someone else to see, then the higher fidelity or a better ability to draw will serve you well. But if it's for your own purposes, then you can really do whatever. I mean, my drawings get very, very sketchy.
Could you just show like an example?
Yeah, there's a example page of
Okay.
some shoe stuff that I'm
Yeah, I
working on.
remember
So
these.
really just working through some very rough ideas kind of for animation. And a lot of that is just, sometimes it's kind of just to lock in a memory. So sometimes I'll think of something, and then so that I don't lose it, I'll just kind of loosely sketch it, so that I can, in case I was going to forget it, then I can pull back to the sketch page, and that might, re-spark a memory or something like that.
Understood.
So I still draw regularly, almost every day, but it's usually just, it's very sketchy.
That's quite
it's really for myself now.
Yeah, that's quite refreshing to hear, because now personally I struggle with drawing for sure, but a lot of my professors, they sort of have some bias against people who are just doing 2D, and who and I've noticed that people who come from traditional backgrounds usually have a hard time adapting to 3D, and they really have some bias against them. But anyhow,
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely people who, especially like older professors and stuff, who might put an extra emphasis on, your ability to draw, and some would even go as far as to like, not like 3D because they think it's too slow or something like that. But you can, in my opinion, you can kind of like sketch in 3D too, where once you become very proficient with the tools, then 3D becomes a good way to create, still come up with concepts and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of like whatever works for you. I mean, for the most part, if you really need to get an idea across like super fast, then yeah, an ability to draw is going to be better, and to always be near a pen and paper than you are a computer with Blender installed. So, you can. It's just kind of use the right tool for the job, what's at hand, and sometimes that is drawing, but a lot of times that's 3D for me as well.
all right. Now a question following that is, do clients usually ask for storyboards? And as a person who does not draw, how would they communicate their idea to the client? How can they visualize it?
Yeah, so sometimes a client doesn't usually ask for a storyboard, but usually that's pretty commonly part of my process, just to make sure we're on the same page with like, hey, we're gonna, this is gonna happen, then this, then this, then this. So it is a good tool for an animation, especially if the animation is more than 5 seconds long. And yeah, more and more I have been drawing storyboards. I actually started sketching things in Procreate. I found that was on the iPad. I found that I'm slowly working that into my process. Whereas before I would just sketch, like there's probably storyboards in this sketchbook here. But yeah, I mean, if you're not good at drawing enough to, well, and even a storyboard, it doesn't need to look that nice as long as they can understand what it's supposed to be. It should be sort of sketchy, but if you absolutely were opposed to drawing a storyboard, then you can still mock things up in 3D and kind of create a storyboard. I think the whole idea is just that you would be able to do something that's fast, easy, low fidelity, just to get your point across. And whether that's something you jump straight into 3D to do, or if it's something that you sketch out, it's kind of whatever works for you and gets the idea across to them.
All right, understood. So, like, you talked about your workflow that you often do involve storyboards in it. So, how does your workflow look like now? Like, let's say you just have received an inquiry, and what's the next step from there to the end of delivery?
Yeah, so usually starting off with just sort of just discussion about like the goals, what we're trying to do. In the case of product animation, it's like, what do we need to show here? Are we just trying to make it look cool, or are we trying to show off some specific features, or a new design or something like that? So a lot of just talking at the beginning, just figuring out like what does this need to do, what does it need to look like, and then I usually move into typing out, sort of typing out a script, or just sort of taking what was talked about and putting it into words, like, so that you have something to reference back to. And sometimes that is kind of like it usually still just, typed out words. But on the last project I did, and projects in the past too, what works out well is to kind of type out, sort of do a chart with like two sides, where one side is, what point are we speaking to? And then, the other side is maybe just a description. So like, this is like introducing the product, and then just writing off to the side, like, product starts in silhouette and the lights come up, and sort of, so typing that all out until you sort of have your script per se, and then moving into like a storyboard, either sketched or in 3D, and until that works, because that's the sort of hardest part, is not the actual execution sometimes of actually rendering the product, but like what's really going to be the most effective way to message this, and like what do we want people to be thinking when they're at a certain point in the animation. So once that's all nailed down, storyboard, making sure everybody's on the same page with that, and then adjusting into like maybe like an animatic, something that's 3D and starts to have some motion, just so you can move out of those just still images that are in a storyboard, and then kind of moving into like style frames, where you're really spending a little more time on the lighting, the product finishes, materials, doing some test renders, and then kind of pulling that all together into sort of the final animated piece, and then stringing that all together in whatever software you use. Lately I usually use After Effects to like bring in final frames and edit a video together.
Understood. Okay. So, like, was it? Have you ever had any bad experience with a client where they did not, they were not happy with the communication or something like that? Like, what has been like the worst experience with a client?
I mean, I try to blame any bad experience I have with a client. I try to blame it on myself, even though there are usually factors that they did that were maybe bad too. But I try to always make it a learning example. But yeah, one of my first really big projects that I got, I was super excited about it. I had a great budget, but yeah, I didn't do a lot of those earlier steps of sketches and stuff, and they're also I didn't put a deadline on the project, and we just kind of were going in circles where I thought we were moving forward, but then they didn't like something, so I was sort of reworking it. But there was no schedule, there was no scope. What we were trying to do was sort of loose, and it just ended up dragging on for months and months and months past what I kind of thought it would take. And they ended up not being happy, and I was not happy, and they didn't end up paying me the second half, and it was just horrible all around. But there are things that I could have done to prevent that, mostly in terms of scheduling. I think I try not to take on pretty much any project nowadays that doesn't have some type of a deadline associated with it, because it's too easy to continue kind of adjusting and tweaking. And there needs to be something where it's like, this has to be ready by then, so that you can look at that date with the client. And if they do want to change directions, or we want to change something, or do more revisions, then we can do that. But it's going to maybe affect our timeline, or we're not going to have as much time to spend on this part of the animation if we keep working on this. So yeah, that particular project went very poorly. But there's things that I do now, from the get-go with any new project, that is sort of based off the lessons learned on that one, intended to prevent something like that happening again. But no, I mean, for the most part, all the past few years have been pretty steady. Nothing too bad, but always little lessons learned about communication at the start of a project, communication throughout the project, scheduling. It gets easier and easier the more you do it, but it not without a rocky start.
Okay, so lessons learned. I
Yes.
pretty much relate with these bad stories. And
Yeah.
now that we're on the subject of something that a lot of people would be interested in, which is quotations and clients and pricing. So a little intrusive question, and you can totally ignore this question if you feel uncomfortable sharing it. How much do you usually charge your clients? And that's number one. And secondly, let's say a client has a very vague idea about what they want, which is usually the case, I believe. And they have no storyboard, no appropriate references for what they might want. How do you quote them, and how much do you charge your clients usually?
Yeah, so I have on my website now a thing that says custom projects start at 20K. So, I try to I try to fit most projects into that number, where ideally, my minimum engagement for a project that would be, on average 3 to 8 weeks or so would be $20,000. But, truth be told, I still do a lot of projects under that. Just, if I have time in my schedule and I think what they're looking for is going to be something achievable for less, and if they seem like cool people to work with, and they've got, good deadlines, stuff like that, then I'll work for less than that. So yeah, to your first question, how much, I would say the average price for a project, would be like 10,000 would be a kind of like a bread and butter project for me. That's something that would maybe last about a month. But obviously always trying to raise that bar. So certain bigger projects, I've charged upwards of 50,000. Sometimes that has to do with the, amount of work involved. So I'm charging more because it's going to be harder. Sometimes that has to do with time frame, where if they need a lot and they need it fast, then that's going to be something that costs more, just because it's going to be more intensive. Also, larger clients, they have bigger budgets. So some projects that I might charge somebody $5,000 for, because they just seem like they're cool and they're a small company, and it's a project that I think I would have fun working on. The same project I might charge $20,000 for a larger client, because I think that they might have the budget, or they're going to get more out of it. And then, something like an investor presentation where they need to get an idea across, and there's a lot on the line, where, if they're seeking, $10 million in investment or something like that, and, if people don't understand the product, then they're not going to get any of that money. Whereas, if I make a really good animation that helps them get that investment, then, that's, it becomes priceless, basically. So you can charge a lot more for a project like that. But yeah, I would say that the majority of projects I'm working on are between $10,000 and $50,000 these days. And what was the second part of your question?
I mentioned that let's say a person they have a very vague idea about what they want, and then they don't have a storyboard exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't know what they want, then I try not to work with them. I mean, usually, and this is another thing from Jonathan Stark, the guy who I had as a business coach for a while. He starts every project, or he says you should start off every project basically trying to talk someone out of hiring you. So they need to convince themselves that this is something that they want to do, this is something that they're willing to pay for, and they have a good reason for doing it. Because if they don't know what they want, then there's no metric for success. Like, how will you know if you did a good job or if they're going to be happy with the result if they don't know what it's for? So if they really don't know what they want, then that is a project I would not want to take on. But sometimes they just have trouble voicing that. Like if it, and that's part of kind of your job as a freelancer is, what questions are you asking them? Like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do it with me? Why do you want to do it now? Why don't you put it off? They'll usually have answers. So they might not know what they want this animation to be, but they'll know like, oh, people aren't understanding how much more well built our product is than our competitor's product, or so then you can say, okay, well, and then you sort of once you have that problem, that reason, then you can kind of reverse engineer, how would you as a 3D designer make that more clear? How would you explain that? And then from that sort of coming up with some ideas of what could work, and sort of working together with the client to figure out, what's going to be best. But yeah, if someone literally just had no idea, they just said, hey, I want a 3D animation. And I said, okay, why? And they had no answer, then that, run as fast as you can. That you're never going to reach the finish line. You need to have a target that you're going towards. And if the client doesn't even know what that target is, then you're not going to be in good shape.
Right. Okay. So where do you drive most of your traffic from? Where do your clients usually find you from, and what's your approach to getting clients?
So yeah, I mean, initially it was just from a lot of those, friends and stuff from the first jobs, and people who I had met at conferences or people through college. A lot of word of mouth stuff. Just having as many people as possible know that Derek does 3D stuff, because most people don't need 3D stuff that often. Even big businesses, they don't necessarily need something like that more than once a year. So you kind of have to just have a lot of people that know that you do 3D, so that you've got this really wide net of people, so that when they do need 3D, or their boss says, hey, do you know anyone that does 3D animation? You want to be the first person that pops into their head. So kind of, knowing as many people as possible, having everybody know, what you do. So because it is few and far between, I think that people need 3D animation. So you kind of have to, you can't necessarily have just like one or two good clients. You need to have as many as possible. But yeah, starting off from just past connections from university, from jobs, people who I had just met places, friends, family even. And then eventually, that became, I was getting a lot of traction on Instagram, and that was where I started to first kind of get some more leads coming in from people that would see the posts that I was doing. I started to post more of the type of work that I wanted to get, so people would see that, trying to get featured on these big pages on Instagram. I don't think Instagram is as good of a place now as it was when I started. So, take the Instagram advice with a grain of salt. But nowadays, I think that YouTube has got to be the biggest place where people are finding me. I don't do a huge, effort to track where people are coming from, but there was somebody who I talked to just the other day that I might start a project with them, and he said that he found me through YouTube. So, YouTube is my guess is the most popular place where people are kind of finding my work now. But you never really know. I mean, there's a lot of the people who are in charge of hiring for 3D at a company. Their Instagram page is like some pictures of their dog, and they have like 20 followers. You'd have no idea that they're like the marketing director for some big company. So you never really know who's out there. I think it's just important to be projecting, your skills, that you're available, and whatever else you can do just to be that guy when someone thinks of 3D for product animation. You're like, oh, like contact that guy.
Right. Sorry. So like, do you have any particular project that you're like most proud of? It's not necessarily the best in terms of budgets or anything.
I don't know. I mean, I did a commercial for a company called Roman that does men's products. But that was like one of the first like big companies I worked for. And the ad that we worked on with them appeared in the World Series, the baseball in the U.S. During like game 6 of the World Series. So I would say that's the one I'm most proud of, just because that's the one that was on like the biggest screen. Not physically like biggest screen, but like that must be the project that the most people have seen that I've done. So I would see it at bars and stuff, and I would see it it aired on national TV for a couple months. So that was I would say that's probably the one that I'm most proud of. And it turned out really well too. But I think what's cool about it is just that it got so much visibility. It was fun to see, Blender on the big screen.
Yeah, that's an ambitious one.
Yeah.
And how's your personal life looking right now? Like, how do you manage between work and like, are you able to balance it out?
Yeah, I try to. I've been getting, I like to think getting better and better and better. I don't, I don't really support like hustle culture, like work, grind. I'm always telling people, when I have conversations like this, and especially with like, younger people, take a break, chill, make sure you're taking care of yourself. So yeah, I'm still not great at it. Like, when I have a deadline coming up, I still do a lot of all-nighters and work late, and have really long working days. But that's usually I try to limit how much that happens during a project. It's usually just around deadlines. I'm still a big procrastinator, but as long as I'm not kind of right, pardon me, as long as I'm not right in the middle of a deadline or something, then I keep it pretty flexible. I'm pretty relaxed. I don't. There's many days out of a month where I don't work anywhere near 8 hours. But then that's balanced out by days where I'm working 20 hours and staying up all night. So I've been getting better at balancing it, but it is difficult, and it's something that takes a lot of discipline to be able to still have time for your friends and family, but also make cool stuff, get work done, get paid. So it's a tricky balance, but I think I'm getting better at it. And beyond that, personally, I'm happy. So no complaints there.
Okay, you seem pretty relaxed as a person, so it's probably visible that you're doing a good job about that.
Yes. Yeah. No, there are days where I do not get a lot of work done, and I'm not mad about it. I'm happy to take my days off.
That's great.
People do always tell me I'm very chill. I don't know why or where or what that even means, but I'm happy that I give off chill vibes to people.
Yeah. All right. So now we're gonna get started with some of the tech questions, and like, now I personally often feel this one, and do you ever feel that Blender holds you back from like taking some projects that just like, for example, like you have to do some simulation, and Houdini is the go-to software for a lot of people. So do you ever feel that you need to learn another software or something like that?
Not really. I mean, it would be good if I knew more software than just Blender, but I literally like only know Blender. Um, yeah, I mean, if I noticed a trend where more and more people wanted super complex simulations and stuff like that, and I just wasn't getting work or something, then maybe I would be interested in learning Houdini. But there's so much that you can do just with Blender as is. So I've never really felt like it was holding me back. And I use like the Flip Fluids add-on, for example, which does a really good job with fluid simulation. But I feel like I have been doing it a little bit more lately, fluid simulation. But if there was a project that I knew was just going to require a ton or really advanced fluid simulation, then that would come back to sort of that initial conversation with the client where I might basically trying to talk them out of hiring me. It's like, hey, look, I can do fluid simulation, and we can make it look decent, but if you really want this look to look spectacular, then you might need to find someone who's more specialized in Houdini or something like that. But no, there's just so much that you can do with Blender as is that it kind of comes down to the creativity of finding another solution. So if they think it needs fluid simulation, at the end of the day, it might need fluid simulation. Like there's no way around it. But it could be that it's something that they just think will look cool. Maybe there's some other way that you can make that point, kind of speak to their goal that doesn't involve fluid simulation if you aren't as strong there. But to answer your question, no, I've never really felt held back by Blender.
Okay. And do you ever feel like, okay, one of my questions in my approaches through LinkedIn was about photogrammetry, and like, do you ever feel that it's gonna eat up a lot of jobs of 3D modelers in the long run as it gets more better and better?
It will probably, yeah, because you won't have to model things as much. But I kind of like the approach some others have had when it comes to those topics of, it's going to take away some of the boring parts of, because a lot of people don't like modeling. I model when I need to, but I can't say it's the most fun thing, and I do still model a lot, but no, I think that people who maybe are making a living now as 3D modelers, they won't maybe be able to have a job as a 3D modeler, but then that'll open up their ability to maybe become really good at cleaning up photogrammetry scans, or they can focus more on lighting, or just other areas. I mean, because modeling is a technical skill, so I mean, all technical skills are gonna remain somewhat commoditized. So if all of a sudden nobody needs to model anything, then everybody who was modeling can focus on more creative things, or just be able to enjoy other parts of the process that they maybe hadn't been able to focus on before. So yeah, I mean, if photogrammetry gets really amazing and people don't need to model stuff anymore, then yeah, I mean, people who model things aren't going to be in good shape as far as jobs are concerned. But I think the bigger picture, it would be a positive thing, because then more people can do the fun stuff that they might not have had the opportunity to do before.
Right.
And certain things, you can't, like certain like abstract or stylized things. There's no physical thing, so you can't get a photogrammetry model of it. Or in my case, a lot of new products, I can't go on TurboSquid and download a model of it because it doesn't exist, and I signed an NDA to even see a picture of it. So that's something that I'll have to model myself. So there's still always going to be room for modeling. Oh gosh, I'm gonna turn this light on because it's getting dark in here.
Okay.
But yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Slowly and long.
Totally, it does. I thought it's morning there, but I know for a fact that it's evening. The lighting almost just tricks you.
What's that?
I said I thought it's almost morning there. The lighting is tricking me.
No, it's getting darker here. So it was light when we started, but now it's getting. I charged this. I had this this was actually like a Kickstarter campaign, but
Uh,
it's like a light. I don't really ever use it. I let my wife use it more often when she's doing like Zoom
okay.
trainings and stuff.
Just
But
in time for the tech
maybe that'll come
questions.
up. Yeah. Speaking of tech questions,
Yeah.
the little light. It's kind of nice. A
Yeah.
little more balance.
Yeah, I'd like to design my space like this.
Trying to up the production quality for you a little bit. If I can figure out how to use it. There we go. A little
Yeah,
bit brighter.
perfect.
Now you, now you can see I'm starting to sweat. Drink my water.
Okay. So, do you work alone or is there anyone involved in the process?
Besides me and ideally only one person at the company I'm working with, no, it's usually just me. The exception being sound design. So there's a guy named Andrew Olson who I work with a lot on sound design. So anytime where the budget allows for it, or there's a good opportunity for sound, then that's something that I don't usually touch. So I'll call him up and have him work on sound for projects, but pretty much everything beyond that I do myself.
Right. I guess that comes from the being a generalist and starting rough.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes that is an area where I do feel somewhat limited. Where if I really want to work on some massive project for some huge company, at a certain point to do really like phenomenal, amazing things, you need a team. You can't do it all yourself. But like I said, I don't feel that limited, and there are limitations to the fact that it's just me, but that kind of creates a style on its own. Like if somebody wants something big, but there's only one person working on it, then it's gonna that's gonna kind of drive the style of the project a little bit, because it can't be incredibly complex. And some people have described my work as sort of simple before, and part of the reason for that is because it's like it's just me. It can't be that complex. And I think a lot of it comes back down to just design principles and stuff anyways, and you don't need to have big flashy assets and all sorts of crazy things happening to accomplish any goal. So yeah, usually just me, but at some point if I want to do something real big, I probably have to recruit some assistants.
Yeah. I just heard the part where you're like, if you want to do crazy big projects, then you would need a team. And I just imagine, this guy Ian Hubert.
Yeah.
He just left the chat.
Yeah, he doesn't need the team. I'm sure he works with people, but I know
Yeah.
he's pretty he's done some pretty spectacular things as just like solo projects.
Yeah. Okay. And we're just wrapping it up with the final question. Like, what are your future plans? Any aspirations to expand this, etc., etc.?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of just still doing the same thing. I see myself doing pretty much the same thing I do now. I don't know, 5 years into the future. Just kind of still working solo, hopefully with bigger and bigger clients with bigger and bigger budgets. But at the end of the day, that's only going to take me so far. I only have so much time in a day. So, I'm trying to do more projects that are a little bit more risky, as in like, so a lot of these companies that are seeking investment or something like that. So, I'm trying to get more and more connected with people who have, big ideas or are launching a product that could do really well, and, where I maybe get a little bit of equity in their company or something like that. Or so just kind of trying to get earlier and earlier. So rather than a big company having a new product and just reaching out to me for an animation, getting connected with a new company earlier on, and helping them build their brand and build a lot of their initial marketing and stuff with 3D animation. So that's something I've been trying to do more of, and I enjoy. Because that starts to really bring in a lot more of those business skills and stuff too, where you're doing more kind of marketing and messaging, and like a lot of those early conversations you have, like before you start doing a storyboard. Building a company is like that too. So that's an area I want to work more in. But besides that, just keep focusing on making more YouTube videos. That's I've said before is something really fun. It's a lot more enjoyable than I ever thought it would be, but it's super rewarding to be able to have people watch the videos and learn stuff and see people start careers based off the videos and being able to have conversations like this it's all a lot of fun. So I imagine I'll continue doing YouTube. And then in a similar vein, a lot of people wanted me to do like a course, like a proper course, which, it's kind of what all the YouTube videos are, but I still need to figure out exactly what a course would be. But, financially, that could be a good thing to be able to sell a course. But at the same time, it's really nice to be able to give away knowledge on YouTube for free too. So, yeah, I don't know what my approach will be there, but yeah, YouTube, bigger client projects, helping companies earlier on, being able to chill more, less, ideally I'm not doing more and more projects, but the clients are just getting bigger and the budgets are getting bigger so that, I think my dream scenario would just be, maybe 2 huge client projects a year and then, just personal projects and YouTube and kind of fun stuff.
Right.
So that I would say that's the desired future state.
Less hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe like you have some background in industrial design, then you came into product. But I also think that one thing that you're very strong at, probably naturally, is branding. It's just visible throughout your content and your website and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really, that before I kind of took off on the 3D route, and even before industrial design, I was definitely really interested in branding. I think I think a lot of people are probably in a similar boat, just love logos and, logo design and, branding is fun. And, like the Dirk logo itself, I think it's probably one of these sketchbooks behind me has the page that I was sketching the Dirk logo on, but I probably only spent like 20 minutes trying to come up with a logo, and I liked what I came up with. But yeah, I do enjoy kind of the branding side, and it's almost become a joke now where I put the Dirk logo on everything, and there's a certain side of that that's protecting the work so that it doesn't get stolen, because I noticed a lot of people post really cool stuff and then it gets posted somewhere and there's no credit. But also just I think graphically, like working branding into your projects is a really cool thing. Just like you can take the coolest 3D animation, but then just like put a logo on something and like add some text, and it just comes to life. So I do like the branding side, and from a client perspective too. Kind of another little tidbit is that that's another thing that I think can help you be very successful with client projects, is being able to understand the client's brand. So that's one thing that I think is really important to have with successful projects is, you need to be able to digest what their brand is, what their messaging is, what's their voice, and being able to, and then things as simple as like using the right fonts and, working with their colors and stuff like that. But, being able to digest a brand and kind of use that in your 3D animation, it also does a lot to make a successful project and something that client likes. So yeah, branding is definitely a big interest, and is a lot of fun for me, and I think is important too.
Yeah, I might totally steal that idea of like protecting your content with the help of your logo, and plus it advertises your brand. So don't mind if I just do the same.
No, you should. I think it's great because stuff just looks. I just think stuff looks better when it's for a brand, even if it's I had done some early projects where for furniture companies where I would just look at their website, try to figure out what their kind of brand and mood and feel is, and then make work that looks like theirs, because it kind of gives you a box to work within. You can only do so much that's going to still feel like it's part of their brand. But then when it's for your own work, then just make it for your brand so that you still have logo and some text and URL and stuff to play with.
Right. All right, man. Thank you so much. And if you couldn't tell already, most of my questions were just problems that I've faced already myself for the last 2 years. And yeah,
One great thing about
yeah,
podcasts is it's just an easy way to have conversations. That's one of the reasons I want to do it too. It's just so I can talk to people and ask them questions.
yeah. And I hope a lot of people will find this useful, and at least I did. And thank you so much for doing this with me. Thank you so much for taking out the time. And that's all I have for you.
Totally. No, it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing it. You think you're gonna put it on a YouTube channel? You said.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
I'll share the link.
Well, yeah, I'll share it. I'll share it out and stuff because yeah, a lot of the questions you asked are questions that people are DMing me and stuff all the time. So it'll be good to I'll just be like, go watch the podcast. You don't have to have to wait for me to answer.
Only if they ask you for a podcast request.
Yeah. I'll send them all your way.
All right. Thank you so much, Derek. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah. No. And yours, Ritesh.
Ritish, yeah.
Ritish.
All right. So that was all for the podcast. And if you guys got something out of the podcast, then please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast. If you guys don't already follow me and Derek, which is highly unlikely, then please consider following us on Instagram, and you can check out some of my work on my website. All the links are in the description box below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.